in your head, or in the head of the best person in the world that knows a specific application, how to monitor it and how to maintain it. And you can take that knowledge, you can turn that into automated code. So an example that I like to give is, like, let's say you get an alert about a problem in Elasticsearch. You know the problem, you might know maybe there's still queries in Elasticsearch. That's great, but the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go and Google it, right? Because you're probably aren't an Elasticsearch expert, and if you are, then the same thing will happen for MongoDB, and you'll have to go and Google it. Because we all deploy stacks nowadays. They're very wide stacks, and we don't all have, like, you can't know everything. So one cool thing you can do is you can take specific issues and then take the knowledge about how to handle that issue, and one time, someone from the community who really knows that topic turns into an automated runbook, and now everyone can benefit from that. And one of the great things about Kubernetes is you have this convergence where everyone is running in Kubernetes, and many people are deploying the same Helm charts, many people are deploying the same software, and actually suddenly my errors start looking a lot like your errors. So the potential of Runbook automation is the potential to really take the knowledge for how to handle errors that come up in production and to turn into automated community shared knowledge. So here's an example of that. This is something that we include out of the box. If you've ever got to know it's called CPU throttling in your cluster, and you want to know why you have high CPU throttling, then we have coverage out of the box, for example. And we check a few different cases. We check for different known issues. We check whether the issues the Kubernetes CPU limit, if so, whether it's safe to remove it. So the potential here is the ability to really capture the understanding of why different errors occur, and then to suggest solutions and even automated fixes. So speaking about automated fixes, that's the third use case, the last use case that I'll look at. So we actually support either complete automations or what we call human-in-the-loop automations. So you can add rules where there will be a button in the Slack message that you get that says, okay, here's an issue that we identified, and you define in advance, like, here's the fix that I think is the proper fix, and you either run that fix completely automatically, or you can give people a button in Slack, and they just push that button, and as soon as they push that button, then it'll go and they'll run the automated runbook. So you're running the automated runbook, but you're putting a human in the loop. And you can automate that 100% as well. It really depends on your philosophy and how comfortable you feel with that fix. So we have more demos and demo scenarios that you just run the kubectl apply to your cluster, and you can see the stuff in action. So we have more stuff in Git, and please also feel free to reach out and suggest stuff. And we have coverage for a bunch of stuff out of the box as well already, so like DNSSEC scheduled alerts, CPU overcommit, Kubecon not ready, different node issues, job failures, CPU throttling, file system known disk space, imageable backup. We have coverage for a bunch of different things, and we're constantly trying to build that out. And this is where I say, please send us your problems. Like, we like hearing about people's problems, and I have the issues here in this list. Either were contributed by the community, or we contributed because people came to us and said, I have this issue in my cluster, I don't know why it's happening, and I'm busy and I don't have time to look into it, so I'm not going to go and automate it myself. So please look into this, and can you add coverage for that? We do that all the time, and we love it. So like, please give us your issues, and we'll take them and investigate them and try and add on coverage. And I want to just end with one more final story. How many do we want time? Okay. Okay, so I'll be fine. Yeah, so I want to just end with one more story about why this matters. So, who here likes Reddit, or goes on Reddit regularly? Okay, all of us, yeah, I figured. And does anyone here know this subreddit that's called, what is this thing? Okay, so there's a subreddit that I like that's called, what is this thing? And people post a picture of something they found, they go, you know, what is this thing? And then the internet tries to tell them what that thing is. So, here's a post that I saw, I think it's one of the top all-time posts. And someone said, I found this in a crawl space of a house from the 80s, my friend's house, there's these boxes. And so they will halt your hard to read with the picture, but it says radioactive material, no person shall remain within 1 meter of container unnecessarily. And the person who found this thought, you know, when you find the box that says radioactive material, what you do is you post it on Reddit and on what is this thing, and then you like go off and go hiking or something. So this looks really bad, right? Like this doesn't look like there's a happy ending to this story. And I want to take this as an analogy to what happens when you get a message in Slack and it's like 3 a.m. Like you get a message, there's some issue in production, and it could be a really, really urgent issue. And if you work in an industry like healthcare, and depending on the industry that you work with stuff, like we deal with software, but the software that we deal with has real world consequences. on what people do. So moving on with the story, like this looks really bad. And the advice on Reddit was like, go to the hospital immediately. And the person updated a 3-man team from the state of Utah radiation control showed up at my friend's house. And that's like the people with the spacesuits, like in the movies, and they go around and took a bunch of probes and they swat stuff. And it turns out it wasn't really such a big deal. The team that came out found nothing but natural, like trace amounts of radon. And it turns out the former owner was just a watchmaker, and they used to paint watches. They glowed in the dark with a paint called radium. And most people know about this because like, the people who painted it would lick the watches, and then they all got tongue cancer. But assuming that you're not licking it, you're not actually ingesting this is really not a big deal. And I want to take this now as an example back to the learning context. Like sometimes there's an issue that looks like a big deal. But when you add in a little bit of context, it's really not that bad. And we speak a lot about alert fatigue, right? And like not wearing people out with too many issues that look too serious, and you realize that nothing is serious, and then one comes a very serious issue, you ignore it. So the lesson of the story is not that you should ignore issues. The lesson of the story is that you want to get context as fast as possible, so that if it's a serious issue, you can deal with it, and if not, you can just relax, not be under stress. So that's the example of the power of context. And what we're out to do with Robusta, and the reason that we're here and engaging this community is we want to add on as much context as possible with open source Runbook automation, and with the community of all the different issues, so that people can sleep better at night. When you get in there in Slack, you can have the context for what that alert means and whether it matters or not. So thank you very much for listening. And we wanted to do something a little bit different in our booth. So we brought the Kubernetes ship wheel. We wanted to try and bring Kubernetes into the physical world. I'm in front of a screen of that, and then not like outside in the garden. But we wanted to like hold Kubernetes in our hand, and you can too. So please come by the booth and please say hi. And please tell us about your issues. Like, we'd love to hear it, and we'd love to add coverage. Thank you very much. So questions? Oh my God. Oh, the wedding is right. Okay, yeah. Am I supposed to repeat the question or? Okay, cool.
Hey, hi. So the question is, in the whole process, you introduced Alert Manager as, is it like a mandate to use Alert Manager all the time? Or can I just play with the rules? For this rule, if it triggers, I can just send it.
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, then the question is, are you defining this as part of Alert Manager?
Mm-hmm.
No, so we're defining it actually after Alert Manager. One thing we've thought about is putting it like as annotations on the alerts definitions themselves, which we don't do right now. But right now, Alert Manager is functioning independently, and then it's just sending it to us as a webhook, and we have a little configuration file there that defines the name of the alert and then how to enrich it.
Okay, so the Alert Manager needs to be there to use this robust, otherwise we cannot use it.
You could probably send stuff from Prometheus directly. You could probably send stuff from Prometheus directly to Robusta. Speak to me offline, and like we can take a look at it. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely say you want Alert Manager between for deduplication and high availability with the like cluster approach, etc. This question one first.
It's almost the same question. So currently we are using this, like I'm from SRE, managing the SRE team. So we are using Prometheus and Alert Manager today, and we are using multiple different services for the adding to the book and everything, sending to the BSM tool and everything. But when you are saying like Alert Manager, already we have the Alert Manager defining all the rules. So is there a way to skip the Alert Manager? It's the same, because the reason, like, we don't even have like two different sets. So Alert Manager is also doing the same thing, but it has like more option here in this store. So it's like, why we need that Alert Manager?
Yeah, so fundamentally we don't need an Alert Manager. Like fundamentally, we're taking individual alerts, and then we have some logic on our own, like rate limiting, for example, to avoid spamming you if the same thing happens too much. So we don't, like, fundamentally, we're not relying on the fact that Alert Manager is there. I just don't want to say we support it without Alert Manager if I haven't gone and tested it. But we do also do stuff, like, we do stuff, for example, for users who have multi-tenant environments or have, like, live Alert Managers, where they send it to a relay that we run in the cloud, where they can post on-prem, and then, like, that routes that back to Robusta in the right cluster. So, like, we've done some work around different setups that don't have quite normal setup. So it's best to speak to me offline. I'm sure we can get it working now.
Okay, and one more question is like, is it supporting only JSON format or is like, are you supporting for SNMP trap and everything?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is it supporting only JSON format when you are sending the webhook? Are you supporting only the JSON format or are you supporting SNMP trap format as well?
JSON format for incoming stuff or JSON?
Incoming stuff. Because you are anyways like calling the webhook, right? The webhook will send the JSON, correct?
Yeah, so
are you supporting only JSON or are you supporting SNMP trap too?
oh, got it. So we have I think we mostly take in JSON. We have a few different sources. Like we have sources from Kubecon, we have sources from Alert Manager, we have sources, I think, even from Elasticsearch. It's not, again, it's not something that's like a fundamental limitation, but it's best to speak to the offline.
Yeah, sure.
See.
Like I have a lot of questions, probably I'll reach with you.
Yeah, good question, man.
Does the robust community support third-party scope from your monitor, so that's sending alerts? Do you guys have that functionality?
Yeah, absolutely. You just send it to us by webhook. Well, you need to send us a little bit of metadata so that we can actually map it like onto the right Kubernetes object.
Right, so if you have that context already, just go ahead.
So if you have the content, sending that format to robust in the way robust understands, you can develop a plugin for that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if we have good enough documentation, so again, if necessary, reach out, but we'd love to work with you on that.
Cool.
Nice. Love open source started.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
There's a question over there.
So my question is about the buttons. Do you have RBAC control on them? Because to give a little context, so we have Slack channels that have upwards of like 80 to 100 watching these alerts, but the majority of them don't have access to that cluster. So if a button comes and says, like I'm looking at the example on the GitHub page, update the HPA max replicas to 12, there's only like 5 people in that channel that should be able to do that.
Yeah, we don't have probably good enough restrictions there yet for RBAC, but it is something that's on the roadmap. It is something also that would be interesting to look at, or an area that we welcome contributions in.
Thank you.
Right, I'm afraid we're out of time. So going for that, no. Just you mentioned there's one more subreddit I want to point out. It's called Ring. You might be interested in that. So for your next talk, you're going to look at that one.
Is it Prometheus Monitor?
Yeah, there's a Prometheus monitor subreddit. I just want to comment everybody can go and subscribe. Right. Talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.